My name is Alex, and I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. I'm a 35-year-old graphic designer living in the suburbs of a small city where life moves at a slow pace. My wife, Lisa, is a 33-year-old elementary school teacher. We've been married for 8 years, and our life together has been relatively smooth, sprinkled with the usual ups and downs of any relationship. We have a cozy little house with a white picket fence, a yard where our 2 dogs, Max and Bella, run around, and an old oak tree that provides shade in the summers. Lisa has always been the light of my life. She's beautiful, with long brown hair that cascades down her shoulders, bright blue eyes that captivate anyone she meets, and a smile that could light up the gloomiest of days. We met in college, and since then I've always admired her passion for teaching and her love for children. However, as of late, I've sensed a shift in our relationship. It started subtly, small changes in her routine, late nights at work, and an increasing number of text messages she would quickly hide whenever I walked into the room. At first, I brushed it off as my insecurities, telling myself that I was being paranoid. But every instinct in me screamed that something was off. In our suburban neighborhood, life moves predictably. Everyone knows each other's names, and the sound of children playing outside is a constant backdrop. It was here, amidst the tranquility, that I began to feel the storm brewing within my marriage. I often found myself drowning in thoughts of doubt, wondering who Lisa was texting late at night or why she needed to stay late at school so often. Then there was the incident at the annual neighborhood block party. That's when everything came crashing down. We had been chatting with our neighbors, and I noticed Lisa speaking with a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, athletic, and had a charming smile that seemed to light up the area around him. I later learned his name was Mark, a new teacher at the school where Lisa worked. The way they laughed and leaned in close while talking sent a chill down my spine. As the evening wore on, I caught Lisa stealing glances at him when she thought I wasn't looking. My heart sank with each laugh they shared. I felt myself becoming a spectator in my own life, watching as the woman I loved appeared to grow more distant right in front of me. The following week, I decided to confront her about it. I chose a quiet evening after dinner when the sun was setting, casting an orange glow through our living room windows. I initiated the conversation, my heart racing with anxiety and fear. "Lisa, is everything okay?" I asked, trying to mask my worry with a calm demeanor. She looked at me, a slight frown forming on her lips. "Of course, why do you ask?" I hesitated for a moment. I've been feeling a bit out of touch with you lately. Is there something you want to talk about?" Lisa's expression softened and she reached for my hand. "You know how school can be. It's just been stressful. Don't overthink it." Her reassurances felt hollow against the backdrop of my mounting suspicions. Days turned into weeks, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was happening behind my back. The nagging feeling in my gut grew stronger, driving me to take action. I began to gather evidence. I started paying attention to her phone, listening in on her conversations, and keeping track of her whereabouts. What I discovered would change everything. The truth hit me like a freight train. One evening, as I was looking through her phone while she was in the shower, I found a series of texts between Lisa and Mark. They were flirtatious, filled with emojis and inside jokes that made it clear this wasn't just a friendship. My heart shattered into a million pieces as I realized my worst fears were true. Lisa was cheating on me. Overwhelmed with a mix of anger, betrayal, and sadness, I felt a darkness creeping into my thoughts. I knew I had to find a way to confront this situation, to make her understand the pain she had caused me. But as I sat there, staring at the screen, a different thought began to form. I could feel the gears in my mind turning, and the idea of revenge sparked within me. What would be the best way to make her understand the depth of her betrayal? How could I turn the tables on the woman I once loved so dearly? I sat on the edge of our bed, phone in hand, heart racing as I replayed the messages over and over in my mind. Each word sliced through my chest like a knife. The texts between Lisa and Mark were intimate, filled with laughter and affection that I once thought was reserved exclusively for me. I felt sick, not just from the betrayal, but from the realization that this man had crept into our lives, taking my wife's heart, or whatever was left of it, without a second thought. The first message I read was innocent enough, a simple hope you have a great day. But as I scrolled further, I found heart emojis, flirty comments about her teaching, and even a mention of a dinner they had shared. "I can't stop thinking about you," Lisa had texted. "You make me feel alive again." My stomach churned at the implications of those words, each one a reminder of my own inadequacies. When Lisa joined me in the bedroom, freshly showered and blissfully unaware of the storm brewing inside me, I quickly locked the phone and pretended to be engrossed in a book. She didn't even notice the change in my demeanor. My mind was racing. I could barely focus on the words in front of me. I felt like a bomb ready to go off. That night, as I lay in bed next to her, I was consumed by a maelstrom of emotions. Anger and heartbreak wrestled for dominance within me. I had always considered myself a rational person, someone who dealt with problems head-on. But this was different. This was personal. I needed a plan. Confrontation would come later. First, I needed to gather more information. I started spending my evenings observing her, tracking her movements more closely. Each time she left for work, I made mental notes of the times she came home late, which grew more frequent as the weeks slid by. My friends started to notice my withdrawn demeanor. "Everything okay?" they ask. I'd force a smile and shrug it off, not wanting to share my turmoil with anyone, not yet. Then, one fateful weekend, Lisa invited me to a school function. "You should come. It'll be fun," she said, her enthusiasm seemingly genuine. I hesitated, knowing that this event would likely include Mark, but I agreed to go, thinking it might provide me with an opportunity to observe their interactions firsthand. The evening arrived, and as we walked into the school gym, I felt an uneasy knot in my stomach. The atmosphere was festive, filled with laughter and the sounds of children running around. Lisa was immediately swept into conversations with her colleagues, and I found myself standing alone, sipping warm punch while scanning the crowd. And there he was, Mark, leaning against the wall, laughing with a group of teachers. I could see the way he looked at Lisa, how his eyes sparkled whenever she entered the room. It infuriated me. I clenched my fists, fighting the urge to confront him right there. Instead, I stayed in the shadows, biding my time, watching, waiting for the right moment. As the night wore on, I noticed Lisa and Mark stepping outside together under the pretense of getting fresh air. I knew this was my moment. I followed them outside, careful to keep my distance. They stood a few yards away, and their voices floated through the night air. "I love spending time with you," Mark said, leaning closer to her. "You make everything so much more fun." My heart raced as I heard Lisa giggle in response. "You know I feel the same way," she replied, her tone laced with warmth and affection. I felt as if the ground beneath me had crumbled. My wife was betraying me right before my eyes, and the weight of it bore down on me like the heaviest of burdens. Suddenly, a wave of clarity washed over me. Lisa had already made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. I retreated back into the school, heart pounding, my mind racing with thoughts of revenge. I would expose this affair. I would make sure she realized the impact of her actions. But how? I needed to think strategically. I didn't want to act out of pure rage. I needed to be calculated, to turn the tables on her and Mark in a way that would leave a mark, something she would never forget. Over the next few days, I began to formulate my plan. I knew I had to gather more evidence, photos, messages, anything that could paint a clear picture of their affair. I decided to approach this like a detective rather than a jilted husband. I started by following Lisa after work. I made excuses to stay late at the office, telling her I had projects piling up. In reality, I was shadowing her, seeing where she went after school, what she did when she thought I wasn't watching. I discovered that she would often meet Mark at a small cafe just a few blocks from our house. It was a cozy little place, perfect for their secret rendezvous. Each time I saw them through the window, I felt my blood boil. They would sit close together, laughing and sharing dessert, completely oblivious to the world around them. A world I had thought was built on trust and love. One night, as I sat in my car parked a distance away, watching them, I realized I had to capture proof of their betrayal. I took out my phone and snapped a few pictures of them together, their smiling faces serving as evidence of Lisa's infidelity. It felt like a sinister game, but I was determined to play to win. With each passing day, I felt a dark satisfaction building within me. I wasn't just a victim in this story. I was the one holding the cards now. I would make sure Lisa understood the consequences of her actions, that she would feel the pain she had inflicted on me. The thought of revenge fueled me, giving me purpose amidst the sorrow. I knew that this was just the beginning. My plan would take time, but I was willing to wait. I would not act hastily. I wanted to make every move count. I wanted this to be a lesson, not just for Lisa, but for Mark as well. As I plotted my next steps, I felt a twisted sense of excitement coursing through me. I was no longer the betrayed husband. Now I was the architect of my own revenge. The discovery of Lisa's infidelity shattered my world, but it also ignited a fire within me. I was no longer just a victim. I was a man on a mission. Revenge was no longer a mere thought. It became my purpose, my new reality. I would not just confront Lisa. I would expose her, lay bare the truth of her betrayal, and make her feel the sting of her actions. With each passing day, I meticulously gathered more evidence. I set reminders on my phone to check her social media. Lisa had a habit of posting pictures of her students and her life, but I knew she kept her affair under wraps. One evening, while going through her Instagram, I discovered a post from Mark, tagged with blessed, and a photo of him with a group of teachers during a school event. Lisa was in the background, laughing, her hand casually resting on Mark's shoulder. I couldn't help but feel the anger bubble up once more. I quickly took a screenshot and saved it to a folder labeled Evidence. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about how she had deceived me and so many others with her lies. I wanted to ensure that when the time came, there would be no room for denial. I decided that the best way to execute my revenge would involve not just exposing her, but also making her reflect on what she had lost. A confrontation wouldn't be enough. I needed her to understand the depth of her betrayal. My plan began to take shape. I enlisted the help of my friend David, who had a knack for technology and surveillance. I explained everything to him, omitting none of the details. David was shocked when I revealed the extent of Lisa's affair, but once the disbelief faded, he became enthusiastic about helping me. Together, we devised a plan to gather more irrefutable evidence. David suggested that we should install hidden cameras in the cafe where Lisa and Mark met. This way, I could catch them in the act, and it would provide undeniable proof of their affair. I felt a rush of excitement at the thought of executing such a bold move. Over the next few days, we worked out the logistics. David had connections with a local tech shop and managed to acquire a couple of discreet cameras that could be set up without drawing attention. We decided to plant them at the cafe during a busy evening when the staff wouldn't pay much attention to a couple of seemingly innocent patrons. The day we set out to install the cameras, I felt a mixture of adrenaline and nerves coursing through my veins. I wore a baseball cap and sunglasses, trying to blend in while David carried the cameras in a backpack. We walked into the cafe and ordered coffee, scanning the room for the best spots to set up our equipment. David found an ideal location, near a potted plant that offered a clear view of the tables without being too intrusive. As we set up the camera, my heart raced at the thought of capturing them together, their laughter echoing in a space that should have been ours. Once we finished, we stayed for a bit, pretending to chat as I mentally prepared for what was to come. I left the cafe that day with a sense of satisfaction, knowing that I had taken the first step in my plan for revenge. It was just a waiting game now. Over the next few weeks, I kept a close eye on the footage, growing more obsessed with the idea of catching Lisa in the act. The first time I saw her and Mark on the screen, my heart pounded. They laughed, leaned in close, and shared stolen moments. Everything I had feared came to life in front of me. I felt a mix of anger and a strange sense of relief. I wasn't imagining things. The evidence was right there, clear as day. As I watched them, ideas for my revenge began to blossom. I envisioned a grand reveal, a moment where I would expose them both. In front of friends and family, I pictured Lisa's face when she realized I had been watching all along. The thought fueled my determination. I decided to set a date for this explosive confrontation. It would be at our neighborhood's upcoming potluck, an event where everyone gathered, a chance for me to make my statement. I would invite our friends, family, and even Lisa's colleagues. It would be the perfect setting for a dramatic reveal where everyone would see the truth. In the days leading up to the potluck, I continued to gather evidence, pulling clips from the cafe footage that showcased Lisa and Mark's interactions. I saved everything on a flash drive, ready to show everyone what was happening behind closed doors. I also made sure to talk up the potluck around Lisa, building excitement for the gathering while masking my true intentions. As the day approached, I felt a surge of confidence. I was ready to execute my plan. I wanted Lisa to feel the humiliation of being caught red-handed, not just by me, but by the people who counted on her to be honest. I wanted her to understand that her actions had consequences, and I was prepared to serve them. The night of the potluck arrived, and the air was thick with anticipation. I wore a calm exterior, hiding the storm brewing inside me. As guests arrived, I put on my best smile, greeting everyone while keeping an eye out for Lisa. When she walked in, wearing a cheerful sundress, I felt a pang of guilt. The woman I loved was right there, blissfully unaware of the chaos I was about to unleash. Throughout the evening, we mingled, sharing food and laughter, but I could hardly concentrate on anything other than the plan I had in motion. I watched as Lisa interacted with our friends, and every smile she offered felt like a dagger to my heart. But I reminded myself of the purpose behind this night. I was doing this for me, for the man who had been hurt and betrayed. As the night wore on, I gathered everyone's attention, announcing that I had something important to share. My heart raced as I prepared to take the final step in my plan. I was about to reveal the truth and let the pieces fall where they may. Everyone, I appreciate you all being here tonight, but I need to share something that's been weighing heavily on my heart. I began, my voice steady though my insides were in turmoil. Lisa looked at me, confusion etched on her face. I took a deep breath, ready to unleash the truth that would change everything. The room fell silent as I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest. All eyes turned toward me, curiosity mingling with concern. I felt the weight of the moment, knowing that what I was about to say would change everything. I glanced at Lisa, searching for any signs of awareness, but she simply smiled, completely unprepared for what was coming. Tonight isn't just a gathering of friends and food. I continued, my voice steady. It's a moment of truth that I need to share, a truth that some of you may find shocking. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the flash drive. The room was still, the atmosphere electric with tension. What you're about to see is something I wish I didn't have to reveal. But I think it's important that you all understand the reality of what's been happening behind the scenes. I plugged the flash drive into the projector connected to the large screen in the living room. As the screen flickered to life, I could see the confusion on Lisa's face turn to dread. I had set up the video to start with a montage of clips from the cafe, capturing moments that showcased her and Mark's intimacy. The first clip played, and I could hear Lisa's laughter echoing through the room as she leaned into Mark, their faces inches apart. Gasps filled the air as my friends and family began to comprehend the situation. I could feel Lisa's eyes widening, her expression shifting from confusion to horror. "Wait, Alex, what is this?" She stammered, but I held up my hand to silence her. The next clip rolled, showing Mark reaching across the table to take her hand. The laughter in the room faded, replaced by murmurs of disbelief. "Is this real?" one of my friends exclaimed. "Are they really?" I didn't need to answer. The footage spoke for itself. The images of Lisa and Mark together, sharing secrets, laughter, and stolen glances, painted a clear picture of their affair. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and bitterness as I watched the realization wash over my friends and family. "I've been watching you, Lisa," I said, my voice rising above the murmurs. "I thought I could trust you. I thought we had a life together built on love and respect. But instead, you've been lying to me, and for what? For a cheap thrill with this man." Mark's shocked expression became apparent on the screen, and I could see him shift uncomfortably in his seat as if he had been caught in the act. I had never felt more powerful, standing there in front of everyone, exposing the betrayal that had shattered my heart. "Alex, please, let's talk about this," Lisa begged, her voice tinged with desperation. "This isn't what it looks like." "It's exactly what it looks like," I shot back, my anger boiling over. "You've hurt me in ways I never thought possible, and now everyone knows. You can't just sweep it under the rug and pretend it didn't happen." I continued to show more clips, each one adding to the evidence. Friends exchanged shocked glances, and I could see the pity in their eyes as they looked at Lisa. With each passing moment, I felt a vindication that I hadn't anticipated. The sting of betrayal was still there, but now I held the upper hand, a power I hadn't felt since the truth had come to light. Once the last clip played, I unplugged the flash drive and turned to face Lisa directly. The room was filled with a heavy silence, broken only by the soft sounds of disbelief and whispers among our friends. "You've humiliated me, and now you need to face the consequences of your actions," I declared. "I want you to understand what you've lost." As I finished speaking, I noticed the tears welling in Lisa's eyes. "Alex, I can explain. It was a mistake, I swear," she pleaded, her voice cracking, but I was done listening to her excuses. "A mistake? This has been going on for months. You've been lying to me, to our friends, to everyone who cared about you. I don't want to hear your explanations anymore." I turned to address our friends, my voice unwavering. "I don't expect you all to take sides, but I hope you can understand why I had to do this. I want everyone to know the truth about who Lisa really is. This isn't just a moment of betrayal, it's a betrayal of trust, and I won't let it go unaddressed." The room remained silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. Lisa stood frozen, her face pale as she tried to comprehend the gravity of what had just happened. I could see the shame radiating from her, and for the first time I felt a sense of satisfaction that I had taken control of the situation. As the evening progressed, our friends began to disperse, some offering their support and others awkwardly making excuses to leave. I knew that the fallout from this would ripple through our lives for a long time, but in that moment I didn't care. I had made my point loud and clear. As the last guests departed, I turned to Lisa, who was now sitting on the couch, her hands trembling. "I can't believe you did that," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You didn't have to go this far." "Oh, I think I did," I replied coldly. "You made your choice when you decided to betray our marriage. This was the consequence you needed to face." "I never wanted to hurt you," she said, her voice trembling. "I was confused and it just happened. I thought I could fix things." "Fix things?" I interrupted, incredulous. "You think lying to me and running off with another man was fixing things? You shattered my trust, Lisa. You have no idea how deeply you've hurt me." I could see the weight of her guilt settling in, and I knew this was just the beginning of the aftermath. She had crossed a line that couldn't be undone. As I walked away, leaving her to grapple with the reality of her actions, I felt a flicker of hope that perhaps this was the closure I needed. Days turned into a blur as I processed what had transpired. Friends reached out, some offering condolences, others expressing anger at how Lisa had treated me. I found solace in their support, but I also began to grapple with the emotional fallout of my actions. While I felt empowered in the moment, the reality of my revenge weighed on me. I had exposed Lisa in front of everyone, and while it was satisfying, I couldn't shake the sense of loss. The love we once shared, the dreams we built together, all felt irreparably broken. In the weeks that followed, Lisa and I navigated an awkward existence under the same roof. She was a shell of the person I had known, consumed by guilt and shame, while I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered heart. The silence between us was deafening, and I knew that no matter what happened next, our lives would never be the same. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let this consume me. I had taken my revenge, but now I needed to focus on healing and finding a way forward, even if it meant leaving the past behind. The days that followed the potluck were a blur of emotions. I had laid my heart bare before our friends and family, and the weight of the truth hung heavily in the air. Lisa and I existed in a tense silence, the walls of our home echoing the memories of laughter and love that had once filled them. Now, they felt cold and unforgiving, much like the reality of our situation. Lisa spent most of her time in silence, lost in her thoughts. I could see the way she avoided my gaze, the regret etched upon her face like a permanent scar. I wanted to believe that she felt genuine remorse for her actions, but part of me was still wrapped in the bitterness of betrayal. The aftermath of my revenge was a double-edged sword. On one hand, I felt vindicated for exposing the truth. I had taken control of a situation that had spiraled out of my grasp. Friends rallied around me, offering support and compassion, and I found strength in their words. But on the other hand, I was left grappling with the emotional fallout of my actions. One evening, after another day of stifling silence between us, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at my half-finished dinner. The weight of the situation pressed down on my shoulders, and I realized that I couldn't continue living in this limbo. "Lisa," I finally said, breaking the silence that had become our new normal, "we need to talk." She looked up, surprise flashing across her face. "Okay," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't keep doing this," I admitted, gesturing between us. "This isn't living. I exposed you, and while I felt justified at the time, I can't ignore the fact that it hasn't made either of us feel better. If anything, it's made everything worse." Lisa nodded slowly, the tears pooling in her eyes. "I know I messed up. I wish I could take it back. I never wanted to hurt you, Alex. I got lost, and when I found someone who made me feel special again, I just went along with it." Her words resonated with me, and while I felt anger still simmering beneath the surface, I also felt a pang of compassion for the woman I had once loved. "You made a choice, Lisa, and that choice hurt me deeply. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." "I understand," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I want to work on this. I want to fix what's broken between us. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." I sighed, running my hands through my hair. "I appreciate that, but it's not just about you wanting to fix things. It's about whether we can both move forward from this. I need time, and I need to know that you're truly committed to making amends. Just tell me what I can do," she replied, desperation creeping into her voice. "I'll do anything." As I looked at her, I saw a glimmer of the woman I had fallen in love with so many years ago, but it was overshadowed by the hurt and betrayal. "I don't think I can stay here right now," I admitted. "I need space to think about everything." Her eyes widened and an expression of panic washed over her face. "You want to leave? Alex, please don't go. I need you. I'm so sorry for everything." "I know you are, but I can't heal in this environment," I said gently. "I'll be staying with David for a while. I just need time to figure things out." As I packed a bag that evening, I felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. The decision to leave was difficult, but it felt necessary. I needed to distance myself from the memories of our relationship, to allow myself the space to process everything that had happened. Staying with David proved to be a welcome escape. He offered a listening ear and a safe place where I could vent my frustrations and pain. We spent nights talking about everything: my feelings of betrayal, the anger I still felt towards Lisa, and my uncertainty about the future. "Do you think there's any way you two can come back from this?" David asked one night as we sat on his couch, beers in hand. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me wants to believe we can work through this, but the other part is terrified of being hurt again. Trust is hard to rebuild once it's shattered." "Have you considered counseling?" David suggested. "It might help both of you to have a neutral party guide the conversation." I hadn't thought about it, but the idea made sense. "That might be worth exploring," I said, nodding slowly. "But I think I need to be sure that she's fully committed to the process. It can't just be one-sided." Days turned into weeks, and as I settled into my temporary life at David's, I began to reflect on what had happened. I felt stronger, more in control of my emotions. I started to understand that while revenge had provided me with a moment of satisfaction, it hadn't truly healed the wound. One evening, I decided to reach out to Lisa. After all, we still needed to address the elephant in the room: the affair, the pain, and the possibility of rebuilding. I texted her, asking if we could meet to talk. To my surprise, she responded almost immediately, expressing her eagerness to have the conversation. We arranged to meet at a local coffee shop, a neutral space where we could talk without the weight of our home hovering over us. When I arrived, I saw her sitting at a table, nervously fidgeting with her hands. I took a deep breath as I approached, reminding myself to stay calm. "Hey," I said, taking a seat across from her. "Thanks for meeting me." "Of course," she replied, her voice shaky. "I've been waiting for this. I want to apologize again, truly. I know I hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself for that." I looked into her eyes, searching for sincerity. "I appreciate your apology, Lisa, but it's going to take more than just words. I need to know you're serious about working on this." "I am," she said earnestly. "I've been seeing a therapist to help me understand why I did what I did. I want to be better for us, and I want to understand how to make things right." As she spoke, I saw the vulnerability within her. It struck me that beneath the mistakes, beneath the hurt, there was still a person who wanted to make amends. "If we're going to move forward, we need to consider counseling together," I said. "It's the only way we can navigate this properly." Lisa nodded, a hint of hope flashing in her eyes. "I'd be willing to do that. I want to prove to you that I can change and that I can earn your trust back." We talked for hours, sharing our feelings, fears, and hopes for the future. It was a difficult conversation, filled with both tears and laughter as we revisited the good memories alongside the painful ones. As we parted ways, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. It wouldn't be easy, but perhaps there was a path forward for us. The journey of rebuilding trust would take time, but I was willing to give it a chance. I returned to David's place that night feeling lighter, ready to embrace whatever came next. I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I also understood that it was a journey worth taking. The love we once shared still flickered beneath the surface, and maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. As I settled back into my life, I found myself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. Returning to the idea of reconciliation felt daunting yet necessary. Lisa and I were still in the early stages of our journey to repair what had been broken, but I felt surprisingly hopeful. The conversations we had shared were frank, and the vulnerability she displayed gave me a glimpse into the possibility of healing. After a week of navigating our separate lives, I proposed we start couples counseling. Lisa was eager to commit, and together we researched local therapists who specialized in relationship issues. That first appointment was surreal, sitting in a room with Lisa, sharing our struggles with a neutral third party, felt like stepping into uncharted territory. The therapist, Dr. Roberts, was warm and empathetic, guiding us through the complexities of our emotions. I expressed my pain, the betrayal that had left a deep scar. Lisa spoke of her feelings of inadequacy, how she had sought validation from someone else during a vulnerable time. It was a painful yet cathartic experience for both of us as we began to peel back the layers of our relationship. As the sessions progressed, I started to see a shift in Lisa. She was actively working on herself, confronting her insecurities and understanding how they had fed into her infidelity. She took accountability for her actions, something I hadn't expected. Each week, we learned new tools to communicate more effectively and to express our feelings without fear of judgment. It wasn't an easy process. There were moments of tension when old wounds would resurface. I often found myself wrestling with reminders of her betrayal, the images from the cafe still fresh in my mind. But with Dr. Roberts' guidance, we learned how to navigate those feelings without allowing them to derail our progress. One evening during our session, Lisa surprised me with a heartfelt gesture. "I know I hurt you, and I want to show you that I'm committed to making things right," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been working on a project for us." She handed me a small notebook filled with her reflections. Each page contained thoughts about our relationship, what she valued, and how she envisioned our future together. It was a raw and honest collection of her feelings, a testament to her commitment to rebuilding our marriage. As I read through her words, I felt a warmth spread within me, a spark of hope that maybe we could overcome the shadows of the past. "I want to create new memories," Lisa continued. "I want to make sure you know how much you mean to me." Her sincerity struck a chord deep within me. I realized that while the betrayal had cut deep, the love we had once nurtured was still alive, albeit fragile. It was going to take time, but I was willing to invest in that time. The following weeks brought a renewed sense of purpose. We started spending more time together outside of our counseling sessions. We revisited places that held significance in our relationship, our favorite cafe, the park where we had shared countless picnics, and even the old oak tree in our yard. Each place was a reminder of our shared history, a foundation we could rebuild upon. As we reconnected, I noticed subtle changes in Lisa. She was more present, more engaged, and genuinely eager to listen to my feelings. I too began to open up more, allowing myself to share my fears and insecurities without the weight of anger simmering beneath the surface. It was liberating to express my emotions without the fear of judgment or retribution. One evening, as we sat on our couch, the warm glow of the lamp casting a cozy light around us, I turned to Lisa. "Do you think we can really come back from this?" I asked, vulnerability creeping into my voice. "I believe we can," she replied, her eyes earnest. "It's going to be hard, but I'm committed to putting in the effort. I want to rebuild the trust we had, but I know it won't happen overnight." I nodded, feeling a swell of emotion. "I'm willing to try, too. As long as we keep communicating and being honest, I think we can find our way back." That night we shared a moment of quiet understanding, a powerful reminder that relationships are built on forgiveness and growth. We were no longer just navigating the aftermath of betrayal. We were actively working towards something beautiful, a new chapter in our relationship. As the weeks turned into months, our connection deepened. Through counseling and countless conversations, we began to rewrite our story. Lisa's commitment to change became evident in her actions, and I found solace in my ability to forgive, not just her, but myself as well. I had allowed anger and resentment to cloud my judgment for too long, and now I was learning the power of letting go. We continued to attend counseling, but I also noticed that we began to rely less on Dr. Roberts. We had developed communication tools that allowed us to address challenges as they arose, strengthening our bond in the process. One evening, as we settled onto the couch after a long day, Lisa turned to me with a smile. "I've been thinking," she said, her eyes sparkling. "What if we plan a trip together, something to celebrate our progress and create new memories? Like a fresh start?" I asked, intrigued by the idea. "Exactly. I want us to experience something special together," she said, a hopeful tone in her voice. After some discussion, we decided to take a weekend trip to the mountains, a place we had always dreamed of visiting but had never made the time for. As the trip approached, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. It was a chance to create new memories, but it also felt like stepping into unknown territory. The weekend arrived, and as we drove through the picturesque landscape, I could feel the weight of the past lifting. The air was crisp, and the mountains stood majestic against the sky. We hiked through trails filled with vibrant foliage, sharing laughter and stories, reclaiming the joy that had once defined our relationship. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, we sat by a campfire, the warmth wrapping around us like a blanket. I looked over at Lisa, her face illuminated by the flames, and realized that perhaps this was the beginning of a new chapter, not just the reconciliation of our past, but the creation of a future filled with love and understanding. "Alex," she said softly, breaking the comfortable silence, "I want you to know how grateful I am for this chance. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm committed to making it work. You mean the world to me." Tears welled in my eyes as I acknowledged the weight of her words. "And I want you to know that I'm willing to take this journey with you. It won't be easy, but I believe we can build something even stronger than before." As we sat there, hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of hope. The journey before us would continue to have its challenges, but we had taken the first steps toward healing and rebuilding the trust that had been so fragile. We had both learned that love is not just about the good times. It's about weathering the storms together and emerging stronger on the other side. With each passing day, we became more committed to nurturing our relationship, creating new memories, and embracing the lessons learned along the way. In that moment, as the stars twinkled above us and the crackling fire warmed our souls, I realized that we were not just survivors of betrayal, we were warriors of our own. Love story, ready to face whatever came our way together. And as I looked at Lisa, I knew that this time we were ready to fight for each other.